Welcome to the Campbells.
It's All Good Podcast.
Welcome to the Campbells. It's All Good Podcast, where our focus is God, healthy marriage, joy, and life. Join us every episode as we share various aspects of healthy relationship goals that we have set for ourselves, provide practical tips for creating the healthy marriage we desire, and how we live life together in God ordained joy. Jesus, others, yourself. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 Your Tone Matters. The Bible emphasizes using gentle and gracious and uplifting tones of our voice to build others up and avoid conflict. And so I'm going to be reading some key verses that we want to focus on as we focus on this topic today of your tone matters. The first verse comes from Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The next verse comes from Proverbs 16:24. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. The next verse that focuses on tone is Colossians 4:6. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. And lastly, Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. So our tone matters.
So definitely our tone matters. So, think about how we have conversations is very important. The goal for us is not just to get a point across, but to listen to each other. Focus to listen to understand versus listening to respond. Because that is definitely a big difference. I can hear someone talking, but in my mind, possibly anger or rage or something is coming out, and I'm just ready for them to be quiet so I can give them a piece of my mind. That is definitely not something that you want to do, especially in a marriage. You want to listen and try to understand the other person. Take a look from their viewpoint. Try to understand why they feel the way they do and be empathetic to understanding their needs. Because if they took the time to tell you how they feel and what they're thinking and what's going on, then obviously it's important to them.
Yeah, that's so good, Brian. I love what you said there. Because of the fact that we have to have conversations that are going to be tough sometimes. We're going to have conversations that are going to be important to one person and maybe not the other, or vice versa. But we have to take on that conversation with love and compassion, even when it doesn't directly affect us, because it's important to the other person, our partner. And so the goal, like Brian said, is not for us to just get a point across, but it's to listen thoroughly. Listening is such a great tactic, a great tool, because so many times I think as just human beings, we want to talk and get our point across and just say what we have to say. But a lot of times we have to just be quiet for a little bit and truly listen to what our partner is saying, and to focus on listening to focus on listening for understanding versus just listening to respond back and forth, because we know what that creates. That's going to create an argument, possibly. It's going to create where the conversation is going back and forth and back and forth, and it's still a disagreement, and maybe it never came to an agreement. So we have to definitely make sure that we focus of how the tone is when we're speaking, and then also that we're listening.
Yeah, because, I think for me, I think about sometimes the tone that I can use when I'm at work. And if I've got any sailors listening, it's just like, oh, okay. But, there's a tone for that. But I definitely don't bring that work tone home with me, because those are two separate entities. And even at work, I try to keep that nice, even, calm tone as well. But sometimes things get moving, right? So you got to make sure you got to put sailors where they need to be. So it's important to keep that separation there with work versus being at home. And I never come at Lania and you will do this or you will do that. That
Mm-mm.
just doesn't work at all. I've never tried it, and I'm perfectly okay with that. and she's never came at me telling me that I have to do something or I better do it this way or I have to do it that way. I mean, we'll talk about like us in the kitchen at the same time. That's a whole nother story,
Yes.
but because she has her thing when she's in the kitchen, we gotta clean as you go and do this and do that, and I'm like, okay, I'll get to it when
Yes.
I'm done.
And I think
But
that's, oh, go ahead, I'm
no,
sorry.
so but it's just again, it's all about the tone and how you approach someone.
Yeah, and I think for us women too, because if you're a mother or maybe you work in an environment where it's like you're a motherly figure, in education, social work, sometimes nursing, those kinds of fields that tend to be women dominated, it's so easy for us to take on that motherly role. And that's not my job to be my husband's mother. I am his spouse, his partner. And so, again, the tone matters, like he said. And so for me, being an educator and then being a mother also, most of the time my tone is very even tone. It's rare that I raise my voice. I can be direct in what I'm saying, but working with children, especially elementary school age children, yelling does not work. Raising your voice, in the sense of just bringing it up a little bit may work, but for the most time, I try to keep my voice just like you hear it now. But it's just how my demeanor looks, the look that I may give. I might give that mama look with the eyes and things like that, or the hand on the hip and things like that. So children know how to respond to that, like, oh, Mrs. Campbell, she wants our attention. She's not playing right now. Same thing with raising children. So it definitely matters how the tone is that we use with each other. For me, I'm more of that person where the voice decibels and lower tones is something that I receive, because if somebody is starting to yell at me or raise their voice in a tone that is very angry, I probably am going to walk away. I'm probably going to shut down. I'm probably not going to listen, and I can be right there looking at you in the face. And so, like Brian said, he does not speak to me, and he's never spoken to me like that. So I've never had to be in that space with him. But I have been in those spaces with other people, and that is how I respond. I don't respond. So definitely when it's a higher tone, it's definitely a trigger for me. And I have been, like I said, in those spaces where the tone is loud, it gets overbearing. And so I'm just glad and grateful that we do not get into those types of tones, that we don't get loud when we disagree, we don't yell at each other to get the point across. Our conversations and disagreements are always even tone. We're just having a conversation where we might be in a disagreement, but we're going to figure it out.
I remember, growing up, one of the jobs that I had, and one of the guys, one of my managers at that job told me, he was like, Brian, if people can say things to you, especially if they say it with a loud voice or something like that, and they're just in your face, and they know they can get a certain reaction out of you,
Hmm.
sometimes they will just do that just to get the reaction. I guess it does something to their ego to get that type of reaction when they know you are somewhat out of what your normal character would be. So I'm very mindful of that even to this day. I watch how I say things, how I respond to things, and then I'm also mindful for me of my facial tones because I know, when people can realize that they're starting to push you in a certain direction and based off of your tone of your face, then they may continue to push. So it's important that you kind of stay even keel and just quiet and laid back and just kind of again that even keel where you're not one way or the other but just calm smooth voices and
Yes.
facial expression matters as well.
Well, I think, listening to you, with the facial expressions, the level of our voice, the level of our voices, the tone of our voices, I think that all of that plays a part in just the connection to everything with us, right? So when I think of the tone, that connects to, our heart, what our heart posture is, because whatever we're thinking, it starts in our heart as well. So if it's something that's positive, that is something exciting, it's something that, we've been wanting to share, that our tone is going to be very, like, just full. It's going to have that sound of joy. It's going to definitely not cause conflict. It's going to cause us want to, learn more about why do we feel so excited? Why is this such a positive or joyous moment? And so I think that even when it's something that may be upsetting, we have to go back to that. We have to like control like what we're thinking and what our heart posture is to maybe calm ourselves down even before we have the conversation so that our tone wouldn't get higher than it should. So it makes me think about that as well too. What do you think about that, Brian?
Absolutely. So, like every day when I come home, within 5 minutes of talking to Linnea, I can already assess how her day was just based on what she's saying and how she's saying it. If she's got that high pitched, happy voice and she's very jubilant, then I know she's had a great day. But if she's just kind of domicile and just kind of real low, then either A, she's had an interesting day, or B, she's not feeling so well. I can tell that every day within 5 minutes of getting home. And I know she definitely can tell for me because
Yeah,
normally
definitely.
I'm always got a smile on my face. I'm talking a little bit and this and that. And then there are just some days where the smile is off and I have nothing to say. And then
Yes.
she's trying to figure out what's going on with you. How are you doing? What are you upset with me? Like what is this? And then after a little bit of time, then I break down and kind of tell her what's on my mind and the thoughts that I've had. And it's never with her. It's always something outside that happens. So it's just all those things and keeping that in mind that your tone really does matter.
And it does, because I think that as we converse more and just talk to each other about different topics in general that we talk about, different things of, life things that we're planning together, I think that our tone is so important because it's going to help us to progress in a way, right? I think that when we take the time to talk in a tone where we are invested, where we are, again, listening to one another and then also saying what we need to say, I think that helps because that helps us to our end goals, right? And so that is what we're trying to focus on. And so we have to make sure that our tone is in a space where we can truly progress. Because a lot of times, if when others, like when we've been in those situations where our tone was different with others, we can see where we regress, we backtrack. We were focused on it so much that it just kind of consumed us and things like that. And we think back to the tone. I know I do when I think back on times that I may have gotten loud with somebody, or I may have said things in a way that it just was not the usual tone of mine. That stayed in my head. Like, have you ever had that happen with you?
Yeah, and and I think back, like again with us, we can watch a TV show, we can have a conversation, or whatever, or we're just talking about our day, and then once we present each other with a situation,
Hmm.
we'll have two totally different viewpoints on it.
Yes.
And we will stand on those viewpoints, but at no point in time while we're having a conversation does it get loud and out of control. That tone always stays in check. And it's one of those walking away where it's kind of like, well, you see it this way, I see it that way. We're both right in how we feel and how we see it. And we just kind of move on from there because it's never something that's going to divide us as husband and wife.
Yeah, never.
Especially, again, because it's an opinionated question. And when you have an opinionated question, that means you have to accept the opinionated answer.
Yeah.
It may not be what you want, it may not be what you like, but again, if I take the time to tell you that's how I feel about something, then you have to respect that and vice versa.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because again, we are our own individual people. I'm not here to tell Brian how he's to talk, how he's supposed to answer all those things. He's not here to tell me how I'm supposed to speak, how I'm supposed to answer. We're supposed to just be here to give our opinions, give our thoughts freely, and then also say those things that we need to say or things that have been on our mind. It makes me think about when I've had a couple of family members come to me, especially about Brian, and they're like, "Does Brian ever get upset? Like, we never hear his voice get loud ever." And I'm like, "No, like he gets upset, but he just does not let his voice get to that space where he sounds upset." And that's what I appreciate about you, Brian, because if others pick up on that, that you can, you know, like they know you might be upset about something, they know you might be happy about something, but your voice always exudes just a good tone where you're still respectful of yourself, you're respectful of others, but you still embrace the feelings that you may be feeling as well too. So you don't allow anything to take you out of character.
Right. Now, if she's heard me on the phone before when it's military stuff going on, and then, I have to go into Master
Yeah.
Chief mode, and I got to make sure that they understand the point that I'm trying to get across, from a military perspective. But that's a totally different situation. But that tone and that talk is never towards my wife. Never.
Yeah.
And it never has been, and I know it never will be.
Well, I appreciate that.
So that's just important to us because your tone really does matter.
It does. It does, and so like I have to think about my tone because I want to be like Brian. Well, I want to be like Brian because I know my tone can be a little bit different
All over the place.
with others. um, I don't think I've ever raised my voice to you. I don't think that nothing comes to mind, and I always want to keep it that way. But I have had to raise my tone with other people in certain instances. And it's not that I, didn't want to, I wanted to be in a certain space, but sometimes my tone is raised when I'm excited. Sometimes my tone is raised when I just am very passionate about certain things. So when I get passionate, even Brian will say, Linnea, can you bring your voice down a little bit? And sometimes I don't even realize it because I'm that passionate or excited about it, of whatever's going on. Has there been times that, I've had to get really loud with others? Yeah, and I don't feel good about that because I know that definitely took me out of my character, and I allowed things to take me out of my character. And so, like I said, that is something that I continuously work on, and I think I've gotten a lot better with my tone when it comes to things that, where it was taking me out of my character, because it's very rare that I'm out of my character these days. But I definitely have that tone, especially when I'm passionate about something and when I'm excited about something, because I can get loud in that sense. But it's not loud directed like where it's derogatory towards somebody. You're not going to hear me cussing somebody out. You're not going to hear me calling anybody out of their names or belittling anybody with my tone, because that's just not what my character is made up of.
So just take a second and think about, how do you respond to others?
Yeah.
How do you respond to your spouse? How do you respond to coworkers? How do you respond to your kids? How do you respond to friends? All of those things may require you or put you in a situation where your response, your tone is different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
We encourage each other a lot. That is something that I definitely admire about Linnea. We definitely encourage each other a lot. We want the best for each other individually as
Yeah,
well as we
so
want the
good.
best for us as a couple. So that is important to us as well. And again, always mindful of our tone and always mindful of how we look at each other, even though for the most part we always are smiling when we look at each other. But just that love and that joy comes through, and that I think too is what also keeps our tone in check.
Yes.
Knowing that we love each other, knowing that at the end of the day we still have each other, that can also play a major role in how your tone plays out. Because the last thing I want to do is get her upset with me or me be upset with her,
Yeah.
and then expect to talk to each other nicely, because it's probably not going to work out that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, we are not perfect. We are not
Not at
perfect
all.
by any means, but we are responsible to each other and we hold each other accountable, especially when it comes to our tone.
Yeah, I think I need to make that as a T-shirt. Your tone matters, and then have some bullet points or something, a nice little hoodie or something. Give me an idea there. Don't y'all go stealing my idea now. But yes, like Brian said, it does. It holds us accountable, and we like that word accountability, because it just makes sure that we stay in a space where we're cognizant of how we're speaking to one another. We're cognizant, even in our minds, because that tone, for my singers out there, I remember taking a music class in college, and I remember that you got to hear that tone, that note in your mind first before you sing it. And so it's the same thing, because if I have that tone of anger already in my mind, that's probably what's going to come out of my mouth. If I have that tone of softness and knowing that I'm going to respond in a nice and calm and even tone way, that's more than likely what's going to come out of my mouth. So I think of it like that, is that's the part of the accountability, is just watching how what we think about, how we think it, and then how we actually display it from our mouths. Because yet again, words have power. We can use words that can bring others down. We can use words that bring others and lift them up. And so I think Brian and I can speak for both of us that we always want to be in a space where we are uplifting others. We want to be positive people, as positive as we can, and we always want to check our tone, because we don't want anything that we say to come across in the wrong way. Yet again, we're people, so some people may take it wrong, but that was not our heart posture. That is not what we were trying to exude or to say to somebody else, because we are just natural born encouragers. And so we want to make sure that when we are encouraging anybody, that we're watching our tone and the words that come out of our mouth, because yet again, we want to speak life to people.
So that made me, as Lanier was talking, I was thinking about something. So that goes back to one of our previous episodes, was basically something to the effect of what I said something and thought one thing, but you heard and thought something else.
Mm-hmm.
That right there can put your tone in a situation to where, like, as I say something to her or to somebody, and then they go high and to the right, or they're all upset. And in my mind, I'm like, what is the problem? I just
Yeah,
said A and B, but they heard A, B, C, D, and E, and they're ready to go to
exactly.
war. And it's like, but that's not what I meant. This is what I said, and this is what I meant. And that right there is a true example of how your tone can matter,
Mm-hmm.
and just how you respond. And sometimes it just simply miscommunication.
Yeah,
Something that, charge it to my head and not to my heart. My heart's intent was not to hurt anybody, but my head being, only responsible for what it's responsible for, and coming letting my mouth say things that sometimes I don't mean. That's very important.
it is so important. I love what you said there, because of the fact that we have to just, again, be mindful of the tone, be mindful of the words that come out and how they are displayed, because people take it all different ways, and we know that we do. And so conversations are so important. Knowing the person, even if you don't know the person, even in those small moments that you're interacting with others, I think the best thing to do is just to, maybe even stop before you even respond back, so that you can, slightly process what was said to you, and so that you can move forward in that conversation. So again, your tone matters. We want to continue to watch our tone. Like Brian said, think about how, the type of tone that you take with people, every day, whomever it may be in your lives, or maybe that you come into contact. So we love you guys. We thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Remember, it's more important to listen to understand than it is to listen to respond. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.